Thank you for tuning in to today's lesson called Oxidation Station, brought to you by the North Carolina Center for After School Programs, or NCCAP. Now, let's start our lesson with a question today. Have you ever wondered why an apple or a banana starts to turn brown if you cut them open but don't eat them right away? Have you also wondered, is there a way to stop that browning process? Well, to answer that, let's take a second, like the at home scientists we are, to form a hypothesis. Now, a hypothesis is something scientists use when they are conducting their own experiments, and we can think of a hypothesis as kind of like a fancy way to say an educated guess. Your hypothesis should explain why we think fruits and vegetables turn brown and if we could actually stop that browning process. One example of a hypothesis might be that fruits and vegetables turn brown due to bacteria, so they will always turn brown over time. Your hypothesis can be similar to mine or totally different, but write your hypothesis on a piece of paper so we can look at it later. In order to determine if our hypothesis is correct, we're going to have to conduct an experiment today. Like with any experiment, though, we need to make sure that we're following the very first rule of science before we do anything else. The first rule of science, in case you didn't know, is always to be safe. Remember, safety first when it comes to science. And part of this activity will ask you to cut some fruits and veggies into slices. So ask a parent for help if you think you need a hand with this part. Now, let's take a look at all the materials we're going to need for our experiment. I suggest gathering everything you're going to need today in one spot like you see here. It makes things a little bit easier. We're going to need some fruits and veggies. We need a red apple, a green apple, a pear, and a potato. We're going to need some liquids. We'll need water, lemon juice, vinegar, milk, and honey. And finally, we'll need some other supplies like Ziploc bags, permanent markers, tape, a cutting board, a timer, and a printout of our oxidation station packet, which you can find in our lesson plan. In our experiment today, we will compare how different fruits and one vegetable brown over time. We will also try to see if we can stop that browning process from happening with a little bit of food science. First, let's prepare our Ziploc bags. Label each bag with one of these titles: water, lemon juice, milk, vinegar, honey water, or control. Remember, the control in an experiment is just a way to demonstrate how things would happen normally without anything being changed by the scientist. We will need to make each of these labels 4 times for a total of 24 bags today. Now, we're going to slice up our red apple and put a small slice into each type of bag. Then we're going to add about a tablespoon of the labeled liquid into each bag, like so. Seal the bag tightly and shake it up. Make sure to get each liquid all over your slice of apple. Finally, write down the time you put these slices into your bags so we can refer to them later. We will repeat this process for our green apple, the pear, and the potato. Finally, we're going to wait a few minutes to see what happens in each of our bags. While we're waiting, let's talk about why fruits and vegetables turn brown over time. Tons of fruits and vegetables are processed, produced, and shipped on a daily basis so that we can buy them fresh. Many of these pieces of produce, however, never make it into stores. This is because many fruits and vegetables, such as apricots, mushrooms, lettuce, and pears, turn brown or spoil over time. And you wouldn't really want to buy a brown banana, would you? The reaction that turns them brown is also called enzymatic browning, and it is one of the largest causes of spoilage in fruits and vegetables in the world. But what exactly happens during the enzymatic browning process? This is a natural process that occurs when the chemicals inside the fruit come into contact with the oxygen from the air around us. This produces something called melanin, the same dark brown pigment that colors human hair, skin, and eyes. The enzyme responsible for the browning is actually called polyphenol oxidase, or PPO. In the presence of oxygen, the PPO enzyme helps speed up a series of chemical reactions which make that melanin we mentioned earlier, and that in turn turns the fruit or vegetable into that brown color. Enzymatic browning is what we're seeing here with our produce, but other things can react with the oxygen in the air around them too, like when iron rusts. And those reactions are called oxidation reactions. And that's where we get the name for this experiment, the oxidation station, because our produce is reacting with the oxygen in the air around it, and that's helping to turn it brown. This reaction, however, doesn't always happen to fruits. Not every apple you see turns brown right away, right? The enzymatic browning process is only triggered when PPO, some other special compounds in produce, and oxygen all come into contact with one another. And this is exactly what happens when a fruit is cut, falls, or is knocked around too much. When fruit tissue is damaged due to heat, cold, age, or mechanical stress, like being cut, its cells break open, and those special compounds and the PPO enzyme are released and they mix with the oxygen in the air. And as a result, the damaged tissue turns brown almost immediately. And that's why we get that browning effect. So now that we know more about what causes produce to turn brown, let's check in our results. I was just talking for a little less than 3 minutes, and you should check your results at the 5 and 10-minute marks. Record what you notice and how brown the slices in each bag might be turning. You can record these results on your Oxidation Station packet, which again can be found with our lesson plan. We won't spoil the results of the experiment here. We want you to find them on your own, but use the table and the questions on your Oxidation Station packet to help you reflect on the results. Some questions you may want to think about might be, which substance had the freshest looking slices? Which had the brownest? If you left the produce slices out overnight, what do you predict would happen? Why do you think that the substance that had the freshest looking slices overall was able to keep the slices so fresh? Why do you think the substance that had the brownest slices did not keep them fresh? Finally, I'm curious, was your hypothesis correct? We know from what we learned today about enzymatic browning that my hypothesis proved to be incorrect. I thought that maybe bacteria caused the browning, but we learned that it actually comes from a chemical reaction between PPO, some special compounds in produce, and oxygen from the air around us. So my hypothesis was wrong, and that's totally okay. Scientists create many hypotheses and learn just as much from the incorrect ones as they do from the correct ones. Share your results and the answers to these questions with us in the comments below. Thank you for joining the NC Center for After School Programs today. We hope you enjoyed our experiment, Oxidation Station. And remember, if you have any questions or ideas for experiments that you want to see in the future, then please reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, or in the comments down below.